Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to go over assignment 2. So similarly to what you did with assignment 1, you're going to use the same type of format, the same type of referencing. Please make sure that you in-text reference and provide a full reference page. So assignment 2 covers the second half of this learning, well, this module. So it's learning units 6 to 10. And it requires the same type of work that you did for assignment 1. So you work individually, you cannot copy, you save a copy of your assignment just in case anything goes wrong. It goes through, Turnitin, and you need to ensure that you reference. Okay, so pretty much the same. You have your same referencing rubric that you used in assignment 1. And something that's really good is that we use the same case study like we did in assignment 1. So you should be quite familiar with the case study. Just the questions now are different. So we're still looking at Kuda's bin to plastics or bin to beauty, and the questions that follow relate to the case study. So very similar to what you did in assignment 1, you're going to use the theory and you're going to relate it to the case study and pull key information out from there. Right. Obviously, assignment 2 requires a little bit more in-depth information because at this point in the course, you should be able to now analyze and take information and write at a higher level. Okay, so let's get into it. Question 1 deals very much with leadership, which is chapter 6 of your textbook. So you're going to read up on chapter 6, and that will enable you to answer the questions that follow. So some key things that you need to know about leadership. Obviously, there's a difference between leadership and management, and we use both in an organization. So when we speak about leadership, we say it's a contextual situation where one person leads another person or a group of people into a different situation from what they are currently in. And that situation can either be good or bad, as compared to management, where a manager is somebody that follows the management functions, so planning, leading, organizing, and controlling, and they do this in a way to achieve the objectives or goals from an organization. Okay. So when you're looking at the differences between leadership and management, remember leadership is unique. It's very much dependent on the context. It relates around people. It requires followers, so people to follow them. And leadership focuses on the welfare of individuals. So a leader is a person that takes care of the people. Management, on the other hand, is not really contextual. It's very generic, the same functions for every situation. It focuses on schedules, processes, procedures, not so much people per se. People are considered a resource to the business. And it doesn't really require followers because it's very much focused on processes and getting those goals achieved through people. Um, and it's not always as focused on welfare of people. Okay, so one is very goal focused, where the other is very people focused. In terms of certain sort of components that differentiate a manager from a leader, we're looking at somebody that has a sense of responsibility, somebody that is going to commit with absolute commitment to something, take risks, show initiatives, and have competence in a certain field, perseverance, and always willing to learn. So that ability to learn is very important. Okay, a key thing to remember is that when you're going through these questions, even though you're going to use your textbook and other sources, please remember that you need to pull out information from the case study and relate to it. So a way that you would do this is if you're saying, let's just say leadership is a contextual situation where we lead people into a different scenario. Kuda is a leader because of this, and this. Okay, or I feel that she has shown this competence, maybe a sense of responsibility because she's done this, and this. You pull that out from the case study. Okay, and you're going to pretty much use that for the assignment in its entirety. So question 2 focuses on chapter 7 of your textbook. So you're going to read up on chapter 7. And essentially, organization is is a process where a manager takes all the resources, and this includes people, and it sort of organizes it or splits it into different departments and segments in order to achieve the goals of an organization. So organizing is important because it helps create a structure for delegation. It shows who needs to do what, and as so you can then see who is responsible for what and who to be held accountable. It shows clear reporting lines, and it's able to break down tasks into smaller units. So where you have one big organization, when you organize into separate departments, it then gives you an opportunity to see who can do what tasks, and it allows you as a manager to monitor and coordinate activities that need to be completed by employees. Okay. It also helps you to allocate resources to the most profitable departments. So very much important in an organization. Then to answer questions relating to responsibility, accountability, delegation, it's important to remember that, so if we read the scenario, so Kuda has recently promoted a supervisor to conduct a survey amongst customers to determine how likely they are to buy the school bags and outdoor tablecloths that will be produced in future. The supervisor tells the cashier to ask all customers to take the survey, and then you've got to answer the following questions. So who has authority? Who's responsible? Who's accountable? Okay. When you're answering this question, just remember authority is something that is given to a person by the organization to delegate responsibility to somebody else, which means to give or transfer responsibility to somebody else. Responsibility can be delegated, but accountability can never be delegated. So if my manager gives me a task to do as a supervisor and I give it to you, I have delegated that responsibility to you because I have the right to transfer tasks. I have the authority to delegate. Once I've delegated it to you, you become responsible for the task. However, if my manager comes to me and asks me what is going on with the task, you are responsible, but I am accountable because you can delegate responsibility, but never accountability. Okay. Then in terms of coordination, remember chain of command, unity of command, and span of control are very important elements of coordinating, because chain of command tells us in an organizational structure who's in charge of who. In doing so, we have to remember that unity of command means that one person must answer to only one manager, and dependent on the manager's ability, how many people is he or she responsible for in terms of span of control. Okay, you then asked to recommend an organizational structure. And in terms of organizational structure, you have to then look at the different types that we have. So we have functional, we have product, we have geographical, and a whole lot of others. Look at the structure of Kuda's business. How big is it, right? Remember, it's a vendor to market. What are the tasks and what type of structure do you think? So is it a basic structure like a functional, or is it something more complex like geographical? All right, relevant for her business now. You've got to identify it and obviously motivate you for your structure. Give me an explanation of how that structure works, right? So if you're saying functional, for example, the CEO sits at the top, we have the different departments and the employees under that, and then you've got to draw it. Remember, when you're drawing it, you can use one from your textbook, you can recreate it, but make sure that you link it to the case study. So where you have CEO, for example, you're going to put Kuda and so on. Okay. Always remember that when you are giving or recommending, you justify for the full marks. Question 3 deals with controlling, and that is chapter 8 of your textbook. So you're going to have to read up on that, and that will enable you to answer the 2 questions that follow. Okay, so you're going to have to essentially look at the controlling process to answer this question and what makes controlling unique to a company. So when we look at controlling, we know that a controlling process must be suited to a company. It must integrate all the steps, okay? So planning, organizing, and leading. It must integrate all those steps. It must be flexible and have the ability to adapt. It must be simple to understand, accurate at the same time, and it has to have an element of timeliness to it, okay? Timeliness means we must know when we are controlling, we must have a date. Okay, then for 3.2, you're going to have to write an essay, so introduction, body, and conclusion. You've got to use 3 academic sources at the very least. Please keep your essay between 700 to 900 words. If you are slightly over, it's okay, but try to keep it as close to that as possible. There is a rubric to guide you in that. And the way you're going to do it is you're going to have to answer using the controlling process, right? So controlling process is establishing your performance standards, you measure it, you compare it, and then you take corrective action. So in essence, as an example, if you had to apply it to a situation, if you wanted to produce 500 products by the end of the week, that's your standard, your goal that you're hoping to achieve. Once you've done it, you've taken part in the production process, you then measure what you've actually done against what you wanted to do. So if you've produced only 100 products and you wanted to produce 200, you then compare that and you'll see, okay, I'm really short and I need to take corrective action. Or I'm really over and that's a good thing. Do I want to change my standard or not? You've got to apply these 4 steps to the case study and you've got to use a fictional situation, right? So link it to CUDA as you did in assignment 1 with the planning process. You're going to do the same. I'll give you an example of how to answer this. Let's just say that you feel that CUDA could make 300 bags in a week. You'll then have to follow through with that example, right? So you'll say, this is it. I want to establish performance standards. I want CUDA to achieve 300 bags by the end of the week. Your next step must then be linked to that. So CUDA produced 200 bags. I looked at the both and I'm off by 200 bags, and you go along the process like that. So please remember you're going to get marks for integrating the actual case study into your answer. Okay. Please have a look at your rubric. There is allocations for structure, grammar, and spelling. So like any essay, introduction, body, and conclusion, make sure you have in-text references for every stat that you use, every new idea. Remember, you've got it from somewhere. Make sure that all those in-text references go into a full reference page at the end. Okay. As usual, I wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions or queries while you're doing this assignment, please remember to contact me or bring it to our live sessions. All the best.